Once upon a time, Australians built things: bridges, dams, power stations, mines, hotels and concert halls. We were up and coming and unashamed of it. But something's changed since then. I know from bitter personal experience that it's very hard to get anything new and different built in this country today. New dams for water supply are a distant memory, as are baseload power stations. And if you wanted to do something really crazy like open a mine, well, you'd better dig in for a 10-year fight with no guarantee that you'll ever dig a single ounce of minerals. So what changed? Well, we did. Or more specifically, the way we view ourselves did. I describe myself today as being pro-freedom, pro-human, and pro-individualism. And the one that raises eyebrows the most is the pro-human. Lots of people assume that, of course, we're all pro-human. After all, we're all human, aren't we? Well, I have doubts about some people, but I'll let that slide for today. My point is that simply being a human doesn't mean you're actually pro-human. In fact, there is a large and growing anti-human political movement, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. What do I mean? Well, it takes many different forms, but the most obvious expression is the so-called environmental movement. Yes, the environmental movement is made up of lots of different people. Many of them are sincere in their concerns about environmental impacts from humans. But if you look at the solutions offered by the Greens Party, if you look at the environmental aspects of the so-called Sustainable Development Goals, if you look at the push for 15-minute cities, what you're looking at are clearly anti-human policies. It's quite fashionable now to describe the human race as a virus on the face of the planet. The idea that we're a virus killing our host is popularised by green groups whose solutions always seem to involve giving them more money. Ideas like rewilding, like human population reduction, like high-density urban living where we pack all of those pesky people into as small a space as possible and force them to use as little energy as possible, all of this can only possibly seem good if you regard humans as the problem. But not so long ago, that was a foreign concept. The idea that humans have to have little to no impact on the planet was laughable. Once upon a time, Western culture carried the Judeo-Christian idea that the earth was given to mankind for humans to fill and subdue. It was for us to populate and civilize, to make comfortable for our own living and for our descendants. Now, yes, of course, this doesn't include destroying it. That would be bad stewardship and would actually violate Judeo-Christian values as well. But it also doesn't require that we pack ourselves into the smallest possible apartments in the highest possible density so that the lesser spotted newt never has to cross a road. The contrast that we see between the Australia of old, where we worked to subdue this great brown land. We created irrigation systems so that we could grow food and fibre, energy grids so that we could live better and easier, industry so that we could supply ourselves and the world with good things. The contrast between that version of Australia versus the Australia we see today, where irrigators are treated worse than the dirt they farm, where energy is both unaffordable and unreliable, and our industry is in China. That contrast is not merely a matter of different political policies. It's a reflection of a completely different worldview, of polar opposite beliefs about the human race, about planet Earth, about our purpose and role here, and even the meaning of life itself. You don't have to be a Christian or even believe in God to see that the consequences of rejecting this idea of filling and subduing the earth has led to a worship of the earth. In a way, the Judeo-Christian ethic has been replaced by a return to paganism, the worship of the creation rather than the creator. The Judeo-Christian idea that the role of the human race is to fill and subdue the earth is the reason why successive generations for centuries have each lived better than their ancestors did. Living in Australia today is just about as good as it gets, thanks to the work of our ancestors, thanks to their efforts to subdue this continent that we call home. But if we continue the way that we are right now, will our descendants live better than us or worse? It's hard to say because technology does continue to improve and the future is going to be an incredibly amazing place for our kids if we don't fuck it up for them. Again, that also means not destroying the planet we call home. No one, least of all me, is proposing that we take a mindless scorched earth approach to our own home. But nor should we be ashamed of being human, of filling and subduing the planet on which we live, of being unashamedly pro-human. Here at the Aussie Y, we stand for truth, freedom and hope. And starting today, in this very episode of the Aussie Y News, we're going to be covering pro-human big ideas, big projects, things that we could be doing that would make our lives and our descendants' lives better and easier. Today we'll speak with David Landini about literally redrawing the map of Australia. In future we'll discuss irrigation, nuclear power, the modified Bradfield scheme, aviation and so much more. We'll be talking about pro-human infrastructure and pro-freedom political reform, big ideas that can make a big difference if only we can find the courage that we once had. That unashamed drive to make our part of the world even better for our kids than it was for us. Don't fall for the anti-human naysayers whose every solution involves giving them more money and more power and giving you less and less. We are where we are because our ancestors worked to fill and subdue the earth, and we should do the same. Here's the news.